never knew it'd be like this. Hey, little Anna, what's the move? I can't believe the things you do. Hey, little Anna, look my way. What's gonna be the price we pay for the money, 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 money.
Welcome to the 2 Month Review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter and 3%, in which we take one book, break it down bit by bit, section by section, talk about it, discuss it, analyze it, make jokes, and have a good time. And this season, the third part of season 12 is going to focus on the Book of Anna by Carmen Boullosa, translated from the Spanish by Samantha Schnee. This is another book by a female Spanish writer that came out during the pandemic, translated by a female translator, that we want to give some attention to, since I think all these books got kind of buried. So I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, and joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox.
Hi, Chad. I'm just curious. Do you guys do you trim the beginnings of these, or is all this in when?
You think I trim anything?
I have no idea. Well, I don't want to know.
Dude, I don't want to take any more time. I find a song, slap it on there.
Okay.
That shit. Just push it into the world.
We're doing it live. Just do that.
I'm in this pandemic. We're doing it live, and it's basically live as a podcast too. Like, there's no.
How's the world of Rochester been?
It's okay. It's we've shut down. The protesters shut down 490, the highway. They shut down the Plymouth exit, and Bob Lonsberry, the local right-wing nut job, was encouraging people on Twitter to go as fast as they could off that exit and run people down. And then he tweeted at Trump, asking Trump to send in federal people to snatch away the protesters. So I think things are not going well here.
Nothing says conserve American ideals like murdering people and having the government take people off of the street. That seems very conservative to me. Doesn't that seem like the principles of conservative government? I mean, we need government to come in and murder and to kidnap people.
Yeah. What has happened to the people who've been snatched in Portland? Where are they?
I don't know. They probably dropped him off at a Einstein Bagels or something. To go to Turnpike and dropped him off at a
Hudson Yarn store. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, everything's shitty. How are things in Atlanta?
It's bizarre. But I love the city. It's a great city. We have this apparently the mayor and the governor aren't really on speaking terms, I guess. One person is cogent, the other is this like crazy dude. So yeah, cool.
Seems about right. They also
but we have, this is what Rochester doesn't have. What they need is, my mom was in town after we moved, and she wanted to take my daughter to Stone Mountain. And I was like, "Oh, you mean racist Mount Rushmore? Or more racist Mount Rushmore?" Like, I need to correct that, actually. Yeah, the overtly racist Mount Rushmore. But you're like, well, no, like there's a park there and everything. You could hike. And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool if you want, but maybe wait, like, because the whole pandemic thing. And the day she was gonna go, there was a 1,000-person armed black militia at Stone Mountain. And then when they were interviewed, they're like, we don't do chants, we don't sing, we don't have signs, we don't do that kind of stuff. They all had guns, and they were asking the 3%ers and the Boogaloo crowd, you either join our cause or come out and fight us. And like, that was their message. They went straight the Borg and said, join us or die. This is futile. So that's where I'm living. This is fantastic, man.
That's amazing. I remember sending you that article, be like, this is maybe the coolest thing I've seen. All for
is it the Don't Fuck Around crew? Or there's something just like, they're down, dude.
Like, don't fuck with us. Straight up. Yeah. They banned gatherings of 10 or more people after 11 p.m. here, even including inside restaurants. So everything's weird.
But I think, as a segue, the social unrest and the revolution is coming. Book of Anna, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely all in there. Anarchism right from the jump.
Yeah.
Social, very confusing communism, some sort of father, all this kind of stuff. So maybe a good place to start. We could start with let's start with Carmen Boullosa for 1 second. Have you read any of her books?
I have not. You can almost name any author, and I probably haven't read them. Real talk.
She's listed as an American or as a Mexican poet. She's born in Mexico City. And I'm trying to see how many works she has that are available in English, because I want to say there's like maybe 6. Texas is one that Deep Vellum did. This one, this Wikipedia page is not helpful. Oh, Leaving Tabasco is from Grove Press. Grove Press also did Cleopatra Dismounts. These are back in the early 2000s. Heaven on Earth came out from Deep Vellum. So she's had some a number of titles come out here and is sort of well known for that, but has moved around from publisher to publisher, Grove being maybe the biggest one. And then Deep Vellum did a number of her books, starting with Texas, which was, I believe, their Deep Vellum's first book.
I can't believe they would do a book called Texas.
Yeah, about Texas.
Impossible.
And I know Will is very committed to Boullosa, and I think that he did one other book that I'm just forgetting the name of and don't see here, but I could be wrong. Anyways, but this book is through Coffee House. So she left Grove Deep Vellum Coffee House, and this is I don't know if they have any others lined up. This is also her most recent book, written in 2016, most recent novel, anyways. And it came out, I guess, on May 5th. Everything came out right around the same time for this. Right. So Boullosa is interesting. She's a very well-respected figure from Mexico, has written books in a variety of different kind of modes. So some are more sci-fi experimental. The Texas one is a history of the war, kind of a history. This is clearly playing off of Anna Karenina. And so which might be the better place to start. The Book of Anna being the book that is alluded to in Anna Karenina near the end of the novel, where it's one of the characters says, oh, well, Anna's pretty miserable, but she spends all of her time writing this children's book, and that she's shown to a publisher, and the publisher wants to publish it, but she says it's not finished, that it's a draft. And then there's a couple more scenes with Anna where she's just basically a opium addict, just taking opium to go to sleep and hating her life. And then it's right before she kills herself. But so this Book of Anna is based on that intersection, that specific quote in Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy.
So would it be unfair to think of it similarly as something remember when it was probably over a decade ago when that book Finn came out? I think it was called Finn, about Huckleberry Finn's father.
Yeah.
It's a brief thing mentioned, and then some author basically says, let's plumb what could be here. Or a lovely book. I love Wide Sargasso Sea, for instance.
Right.
We take a classic piece of literature and let's take it from a different angle and kind of run with it that way. Do you think this one would be if you're talking and you're selling the book, would you maybe mention that as part of the?
Yeah, that is kind of it's kind of a sequel in a way, because it's taking place chronologically afterwards, but is also, I don't know. I've read this part. We were going over section 1, which I didn't say at the start, but it's part 1. It goes through pages 1 through 73. This book has 5 parts, so we have 5 weeks to this. But the next part is 20 pages. There's a few of them that are very short. So we've read a chunk of the book, but I don't know what comes after this, and I feel like it has to be. I feel like it's going to be more structural in terms of what happens, and not just follow these same characters in this way, but do something different. But I honestly don't know. But for the moment, I would say this is working as kind of a sequel to Anna Karenina in terms of time, but also clearly foregrounding the fact that it's trying to be as if Anna Karenina existed in the world, and all the Anna Karenina, the creations of Tolstoy within Anna Karenina, are also extant in this world, including Anna's son, Sergei, and daughter, Anya, and the servants that are referenced. And she makes a great point of this, and it's something we can come back to as well, as what the metafictional elements of this book are and what it's trying to do. But yeah, I would say it's kind of a sequel that's engaging with that and trying to invent the one part, especially because Anna's I heard Carmen talk, and she emphasized a couple of times that Tolstoy references this book in this section, and it is referenced. I I listened to the whole book by read by Maggie Gyllenhaal, and read parts of it. And I went back and found this particular part. And it's referenced in like kind of passing, and then is like completely dropped. Like it just completely never comes up again about her writing anything. Nothing like that comes up. So it's like something that was there and then is gone. So I think Carmen, from like a feminist writerly perspective, is trying to reclaim that book for Anna, and like what it was that was praised by this editor, but yet like just doesn't matter. What matters is that she had an affair on her husband with Vronsky.
Okay.
And that becomes kind of her defining thing. So have you read Anna Karenina?
I've seen the movie with Keira Knightley and Jude Law, so there is a book.
Ooh, yeah.
No, I didn't realize. Oh, so it is based. Okay.
It's a short book. It's a short, thin book from it's like novella length.
Because the movie is only 2 hours long, so I figured the source material was probably about 200 pages. I'm assuming.
Yeah. Oh no, maybe 74. Maybe 74.
That's an epigraph for Tolstoy.
It's a fever dream, but like
200 pages. That's an afternoon, just a little afternoon shakeout.
Yeah, the version I had was like 940 pages long. It's a long ass book, which
it's one of those ones I wanted to read. It's always on the best of list, but it's so long, and you know, the amount of clout I can get for at a cocktail party having read 5 books versus 1 would serve me better, I feel. So I've done,
This immediately is in my top 10 books of all time.
And all right, so I'm gonna read it. Thanks.
It's that good. Like,
I know it's good.
I was expecting it to be fairly dry and like sort of like Russian in like the Pavir and Volokhonsky sort of translated Russian, where it's like so Russified and like clipped and like dry and like whatever. And it's actually not. I mean, it's a book that's based around fucking. Like, it's a fuck book in a lot of ways that nobody else will say this. But like, there's a scene like, so Anna like meets Vronsky. She's married to whatever his name is, Sergei Karenin. She meets Vronsky, there's a lot of complications. There's a ton of characters, and I'm just going to give you the brief overview of her role within this. So she has a kid, Sergei, with her husband, and then she meets Vronsky, sees him at like this ball, and they have like a thing go on. And so then Vronsky like pursues her and is like, "I'm in love with you," blah blah blah. And then there'll be like these time jumps, and they'll be like Anna's husband being like, I don't want you to be improper. Like, you're just causing all these like social things because people know that you have like a thing with him. You should stop doing that because it's your religious duty to our marriage to be faithful to me and not someone else's person. And she's like, "You're a dick." And like, he is a super dick. And then Vronsky later on becomes a dick as well. But then there's like a segue, and it'll be like Anna's like, and it's like, feels guilty for what she just did, but the pleasure was so intense. And it's like, oh shit, Anna just got railed. And she's like, "I don't regret doing this at all." So it's like, so then because of that, because then her husband's like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "I'm having an affair on you. I love him. You're just not part of my life anymore. I don't want you around. You are insignificant." He then sort of more or less like blackmails her and is like, "You're not getting a divorce. I'm taking the kid, the son. You're not raising the son. You're going off with Vronsky. Go do whatever the fuck you want to do, but I'm never giving you a divorce." So then Vronsky and her like traipse through Europe. There's a painting that's made of her in one long extended scene that deals with like the nature of painting. There's lots of conversations about the role of women in society in like this 1890s sort of Russia. Post-Tsarist, but pre-like communist revolution. And there's like various other things that are about like the land and like political discussions. But on her storyline, she and Vronsky then have she has like a falling out because she's convinced that he's no longer in love with her like he used to be, and there must be someone else. And then she just gets so upset about it, she just kills herself. But they have a daughter first. Oh, that's right. She tells her husband that she's having an affair because she's pregnant with Vronsky's daughter. So Anya in here is Vronsky's daughter. Sergei is Karenin's daughter. But the book is marvelous. Like, in the way I read the translation that's really old, the like one of the earliest ones from Constance Garnett, who's usually criticized for making things sort of flowery and Victorian, but that really works. Like, I don't like Pavir and Volokhonsky's translations at all. And like for this, like reading it like that, I mean, they're always talking in French. There's like a bit of that flowery sort of courtliness to it, but it's super engaging. Every chapter, all the characters are like really multifaceted, where you vacillate between like liking them and thinking they're pieces of shit, or like whatever. They're all complicated. It's very, I mean, it's impressive. Like there's no doubt to that.
Fine, that'll be my homework. I will read it over the next 4 weeks, so then I'll complete 2. I'll finally read Anna. I'll check that off. I'll have that read, and I'll have Book of Anna read. So
I'm going to recommend
bang, bang.
Maggie Gyllenhaal.
No, I'm going to read it. I'm not going to listen to it.
Dude, listening to it is so good. You can get it for $1, by the way, as like a Kindle book. So
I don't know how to do those. I'm that bad with technology.
So
it literally took me. This is how bad I am. It literally took me a half hour to download Chrome because I don't have Chrome on my computer. That's how bad I am. And all you have to do is drag and drop something. But I was doing the picture of the folder instead of the actual picture of the Chrome thing. That's how stupid I am. So I'm not going to be able to figure out how to get a $1 Kindle book or whatever. It will not work for me.
Yeah. But you can get the regular book.
Bookstore, I'm going to get COVID and somebody and buy a book physically.
Go in there, don't wear a mask because it's the South. Go in there and search with your rights, or wear a Confederate flag mask.
Wait, do I want to vote for Biden? Hell no, I ain't wearing a mask. I'm gonna raw dog it. I'm coming in here mouth breathing.
I'm gonna raw dog this experience of COVID exposure. Breathe it all in.
Mouth breathing in here. Let's go. So yeah, I'll read it. Yeah,
it's good. It's really good. So there's a couple threads. So book 1 is called, in here there's a million quotes, an explanation of what the book is. Part 1 is Anna, Sergei, and Anya's City, and it's set on Saturday, January 8th, 1905. And begins with an anarchist with Clementine. So there's really 2 threads that run throughout this first part. One is Clementine, who is an anarchist who initially, at the very beginning of this, tries to blow up a ferry, right? Is it a ferry or a tram? A tram.
Yeah.
Tries to blow up a tram and has a bomb, like pretends that it's a baby, gets on the tram, does this whole bit, and then like sets off the bomb, but it doesn't work. It's like nothing. And then we find out that that there's another group of people who are organizing and against the Tsar, and that is led by Father something.
Uh-huh.
Father Dude. And they're less anarchist and more about like marching in the streets, sending a letter to the Tsar, asking for like him to pay attention to them and to give workers' rights. There are also signs that are up all throughout the city that you can't gather, that any demonstration will be like destroyed and dismantled. So we're at this moment in like Russian history where shit's about to just blow up.
And they're more peaceful as well, right?
Yeah.
There's a conversation of should we be armed or not, and that's a fissure that's going to kind of feels like it's going to rip between the 2 sides.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, with Clementine, she's all about that life.
Oh yeah.
As we get in chapter 1.
Yeah, she wants a gun, like for sure.
It's so crazy that this was written in 2016. You said.
Yeah.
And again, I guess it's just maybe it's the sign of our times where we try to relate everything to what's going on right now. But again, it feels very, very pertinent to what we're going to do in the larger cities and the States. But we all know we want things to change. We're just how are we supposed to make it happen?
Yeah, I was trying to write an article for a while that I've been alluding to on here that's become too complicated and might be, I don't know what it is right now. I don't know how to do it, but it was based on a couple of books I read about, one about Spain and the Civil War in Spain, and the other one, the second part of Vernon Subutex by Virginie Despentes, where they basically have like a yuppie revolution, a hippie, like semi-hippie revolution, like in France now, but everyone has like their differing opinions on what would be the best approach to making things better. And in all instances, they fail. And so I was right about like the illusion of hope, essentially. But it felt kind of dark. But this is another one where there's always these fragments of like, in the Spanish Civil War, there's the like in this book I read, there's the character who's like, we don't need, we just need to love each other and like talk and things will be great. And then there's people are like, do you understand the fascists are coming with like fucking massive amounts of weapons and they're just like slaughtering people? Like we need to arm ourselves and fuck them up. And they're like, nah, man, like you know, you bring a gun to the fight, and there's just more guns, and like so. And so, like, even in the Burning Supertext, they're all like, let's just hang out and have like raves every so often, and like people be in the moment and they'll feel good, and just adding that joy to the world will have a cumulative effect.
I just keep thinking about the kid you saw that got shot up with rubber bullets for throwing milk on someone.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you throw a Molotov cocktail at anybody ever, but if you're going to get shot up with bullets, you're going to do it for milk? That's not a good story to tell when you're your protest cloud.
Yeah, your protest club, your protest Reddit thread.
Yeah.
The other line through here is that Sergei, who is Anna's, well, there's kind of a few parts to this, but that is who is Anna's son. He and his wife Claudia are going to the concert, and they go and pick up Anya, who is Sergei's half sister, who is Anna's daughter from Vronsky, and they go to the concert. There's various discussions at the concert about this father dude, and like the politics and all that kind of stuff, and the role of women in politics. They see the concert, they go home. The big issue that's going on with Sergei, though, aside from the metafictional part, which we can get into, but the other thing that's going on for him is that the Tsar wants the portrait of Anna that was made in Anna Karenina in the book by this Mikhalkov, or I forget what his name is, but that painter, I don't think is real, but like maybe it is. I have no idea. I never looked that up. Right now though, but that he paints a picture of her, and it's supposed to be so beautiful and so wonderful, and so the Tsar wants it, but like nobody's seen it because it's been like turned around. Maybe this is a real painter. No. Maybe no. I don't know. Doesn't look like it. But the painting that he wants, and like and Sergei's very upset because it'll be like a scandal, because everyone always talks about like the Anna Karenina woman, because we exist in a world. This book posits a world where all of the other characters have read Anna Karenina and know everything about these characters because they have been written on paper. So Sergei talks several times about how he is just a character. Anya is like almost human because not much is ever written about her in Anna Karenina, but other people are like, oh, I know you guys, like, fuck, I love you guys. I've read this book 100 times. Like, yeah. so that is the world in which this is moving, which is sort of weird.
Yeah, there's a really interesting juxtaposition where is my audio weird?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, I'll switch to headphones. Yeah, but there's a strange juxtaposition where it has the straight ahead feel of, all is taking place at the precipice of a revolution, but then you add in the kind of postmodern metafictional technique with it, which is this weird. I don't know. I like it. It's really cool.
Yeah, it is like metafictional in a way where it's like there's like the revolution going on against the Tsar, and there's a sense like this revolution against the book and against the author. So there's like sort of parallels there as well in terms of like him wanting to like be out of being just a character. He doesn't want to just be Anna's son. And like, or is it Anya that's constantly like, I wish I could be a person. I had to read this as a printout because we don't have the actual book, so my notes are hard to find. But I believe it's her who's like, I want to be. There's someone's like a Pinocchio situation. It's like, I want to be a real person. I don't want to be a fictional character anymore. I write that down at. But it is interesting that kind of straightforwardness of like the social political novel with this metafictional tinge that runs alongside it.
Yes, I agree. I think that was one of the stronger aspects that I really touched on, was that.
The other thing, we were talking about this for a second beforehand, but the Tolstoy writing style, at least in the version I read, is very similar to this. So when you're asking about like if it's connected or not, like it's almost like aping it in a way, like these long conversations. People are generally like, all these chapters are very short. They just move people from point A to point B, or they like accomplish a small thing, and then they go into the next chapter in which it might still be the same characters, but they're like then talking about the next part of the bit. or the next part of their conversation, and that's very Tolstoy-like. It's very much like Anna Karenina is written. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. So it is Sergei. So Sergei thinks, is there anyone here who sees me not as a character but as a person? Even I think of myself as a character. A character is about to lose everything. So he's like Pinocchio. Like, I want to be a real boy. Like, let me be a real boy. I want to be human. So his nose doesn't grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
yeah. Kind of those, those moments, and then those moments where the narrator almost speaks directly to us. Like, it's important when we mention childlike here, because Sergei's like, it's like this, it's almost like a freeze frame, and then you break the wall and give. It's a really interesting way of doing background or carving out kind of this cave behind the eyes of the character to fill in with things. Like, it's a really neat way of handling that material. I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah, I was curious about this when I was reading it too. Is what did you? Having not read Anna Karenina, were the explanations of where things were logical to you? Like, in the sense of like the concert, when they talk about the box and the concert, like that's a crucial scene in the book. And having read the book so recently, right when it got to there, it's like, oh, this is like going to be this, like it has to be. And then it references the dress she wore, that Clementine has that dress that Anna wore to this event, where like in Anna Karenina, she goes and she sits down. She's like a ostracized woman because she cheated on her husband, but she's back in that society with her like lover Vronsky, and people are like, I don't want to be around her. She's awful. And like, it's like a stir and makes her feel shitty. And it's like a big scene in the book. And Vronsky's not there. Like, he doesn't want to go. And it's part of a whole deal. And so the second it got to that, I was like, okay, I see what's going to come. And then it did explain it like in detail, but I wasn't sure, like, would that make sense to you if you didn't read the book? So this is a question for you. How did that work?
No, it worked totally fine. I got it. I could follow along. And I just knew in the back of my head, you kind of, I think it can be another strong suit of the book, where it made me realize, I know if I had read Anna Karenina, I'd be enjoying this so much more. I'd probably be reading with like a giant grin on my face, getting all the references or knowing the scenes. I was okay not being in on that aspect of it and still enjoying the book. I think it's just one of those ones where it like almost like an inside joke, where like if you really nerd out on a film, for instance, and know that it's referencing other works, you can really enjoy the sly moves that's going on. And it's just lost on me. That's all. I can still enjoy it moving straight ahead though.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does explain, I hope, basically anything. If you have a question, you're like, I don't get this, like I can probably fill it in, because it is super fresh on my mind, and it is a book that's very like cinematic. So easy to remember, in other words. But it is. I thought that it was doing a good job of that, with that, and balancing, like giving you little Easter eggs, but also not leaving readers behind where they're like, I don't know what Anna Karenina is, so this is impenetrable.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that at all. It was. Yeah.
What do you think of her writing style?
I thought it did a really good job handling like, it has that Russian feel to it, whatever that means. I wish we had Russian literature experts on, because I'm certainly not that. But from the little I do and the little I've read, I felt very comfortable in that, like sitting in that chair of like, oh, I know where I'm at. So yeah.
That is what I'm trying. I'm trying to get guests that would be that. The guests that we had this week couldn't work out, so
yeah, that's fine.
But I that's the goal as well, is to try and get a couple of Russian literature experts to talk about it in relationship between, like, how does this resemble a Russian novel, and how does it resemble a Mexican or non-Russian novel, just non-Russian as a whole? Because it's I think it's interesting that she puts in that Claudia's born in Seville, like that gives like a sort of entryway that's not purely Russian.
Yeah, or somebody dreamed of moving to Texas.
Yeah, they dream of moving to Texas. Yeah,
which is like, what? People in Russia dream of moving to Texas? No way.
It doesn't even exist in this time. I mean, Texas is pretty much like the 49th state, right? Like, nobody wanted that piece of shit until they foisted themselves upon the rest of America.
I'm pretty sure Mexico liked it just fine.
They were happy. It's just Mexico.
Yeah. No, so like again, that was, I thought, like kind of like a fun, whether it's true or not, or references the original material or not. I smiled when I came across that line.
Yeah.
It reminded me too of when it talked about, I think it was, I forget the tribe. I think it's the Proud Apache. I think was the. I smiled because it made me think of when we read Gorgy Gasparinov. Is that how you say his last name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where it talks about in Physics of Sorrow when they were watching Westerns as kids, and they always rooted for the Indians because the Indians are the good guys and the cowboys are the bad guys. And so I like that way of referencing like the socialism that's going to be coming and the communism is going to be coming as a result of the revolution, referencing Texas, and it doesn't mention cowboys, it mentions the Indians instead. So it reminded me of Physics of Sorrow with that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's super fun. I remember reading a lot about the Russian Revolution back in college and like these specific times, but it's so vague to me now. I just remember the general outlines of things.
But yeah, I think it did really good with I really like seeing the difference in class, the difference in struggle, the difference in like the way relationships are working so far. I felt very comfortable and felt very authentic.
And that seems very Russian, like the class part of it, because that's part of the Anna Karenina novel over and over again. Is like Levin is like one of the characters who owns some land and like farms the land and has like peasants working the land, but he wants to figure out a better relationship because the farms aren't going to make money by all the ways that things work. It doesn't work. It's not sustainable. So he spends all this time trying to figure out what the right way would be to like manage your land and make people happy and do all of this. So there's like a class thing that's throughout that's like baked in, and like there's the prince and like the count and like there's all the various types of royalty and of like financial status. Like there's one part where someone's like, yeah, I'm like $20,000 and 20,000 rubles in debt or whatever, I'm drowning. This guy's like, ha ha ha, that's what we'd live for. Like I'm 200,000 and like I'm still banging 4 mistresses. Like, don't worry about it. You just borrow money and it doesn't matter. That's what our lives are supposed to be like. And like you could feel like in Anna Karenina that reckoning coming, where it's like, oh, these people should rise up and eat that dude's soul. And that now is like much more like active in here because we've advanced like 10, 12 years or whatever it is. I forget what year Anna Karenina is set in, but I think it's like 1893.
Well, I really enjoyed it felt very postmodern when it was talking about Sergei's age. Like it could be 1875. Although if you go by this, his birthday, his date could be 18. And if you'd only read English, monolingual, like, oh, yeah, that's me. It would be even later because it didn't come to English until like it was such a wonderful way of discussing the histories. Or does this matter? Does it not matter? How confusing it can be. It was such a wonderful. It felt very. It had this like wonderful postmodern aesthetic in the middle of this Russian novel. I thought it was so fantastic.
Yeah, really, it's very good for blending all those kind of different levels of voices and like styles of treating things. So yeah, it is interesting. It's an interesting conceit. And then there one other part that I didn't mention to recap is that there's the way that the Clementine storyline with Father Gabon, maybe is that it? I still can't remember. Oh, Father Gapone, Gapon. Whatever, Gapon.
Nailed it.
Father, whatever. The way that those two end up connecting is that Claudia and Sergei's one of their servants, Alexandra, sneaks out when they're at the concert with the help of their driver to go to the meeting with the father, and she's in the cab with Clementine, and Clementine knows her brother, Vladimir, who is sending a message on Father Gabone's behalf, and that she's going there. Alexandra is looking to try and find out what's happened to her brother, not knowing that her brother has returned, and instead being told that he's like been captured by the Tsar's people, and is waiting for them to return. And that's where those two kind of lines cross in this.
Yeah, and I thought especially using the coachman was a way of weaving those worlds together and bridging it. I think it was a really nice. Great move.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about in relation to this?
No, I'm excited to move forward because shit's about to go down, I think.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the titles of everything, it retains all of the like. Well, I don't know what's going to happen. The first two
with the portrait, because I feel like that's one of those kind of MacGuffins that's going to. Whatever happens, like it's the start of something, because it's unsettling in a gentrified way or whatever, in a courtly way. It's unsettling the rich people's world, and I'm curious how that's going to intersect with the anarchist world.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming the
artist world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have all three things working. Yeah. So the portrait, Karenina's portrait is part 3.
Okay.
So that'll definitely play into something, I'm sure of it. But the next section that we're going to read next week is just part 2, Bloody Sunday, which is Sunday, January 9th. So a day later. Yeah. And is a very short chapter. It only goes up through to page like 100. So
good. I can crank out some full story in the meantime.
Mm-hmm. I'll try and finish War and Peace by next week too. Started, after this, just read it. Just binge War and Peace until next Wednesday. That would be a lot. But yeah, so do you have a favorite line that you want to choose from here? I've had a hard time marking things.
Just for a sign of the times, I'll go on page 33. Again, it's the elite class talking about change being in the air, right?
Oh yeah.
I think General Pantalev is right. We should raise their wages and sort out their housing and the problem of healthcare too. Everyone has an opinion. The factory owner should cover the cost. That's a fantasy. The financial implications would put thousands out of work. The cure would be worse than the disease.
Yep. The one that I was gonna quote is right below that. Zubitov had the magic formula. Quote, the only way for the state to keep the revolutionary forces in line is the cooperation of law enforcement and the working class.
It's like, oh my God, we're living this right now.
Like, that's one of the weird things about Anna Karenina reading it, is like how wickedly modern it was, where like Anna will have these long sections where she's like, being a wife is shit. Like, this is terrible. Like, why is anyone married? Marriage is the dumbest thing. Like, it just causes unhappiness for everyone involved. Like, and multiple characters are like that. They're like, we need to just get past this into like a world where we're like not doing this religious, like technical shit, because it's just not working. Like, our society's a little jacked up. Like, we could fix this. And it feels exactly like conversations you could have today. Like, there's so many ones in there where it's like, no, yeah, that's still relevant. Like, how the divisions of labor work and how capital works. That's the funniest part of the Constance Garnett translation, is that everything is capital. Like, as in, like, instead of saying awesome, they're like, that's capital. That's capital. He's such a capital fellow.
But I'll springboard off of your comment right there on page 53 at the top. We can't put the women and children at the front of the demonstration. It's too risky. What's the risk? The risk of death. You don't think that's risky?
Oh yeah, they wouldn't dare shoot them. They'll shield the others, just like the line of moms in Portland.
Yeah.
The mom shield.
And then I really liked on the bottom of 51, which I think showcases one. I mean, I think we've showcased its relevancy. I think we're showing there's a great sense of humor that's throughout this as well.
Very.
And then I think, again, if we want to kind of get into more of that postmodern aesthetic that's in here, we can see that on the bottom of 51. But no such thing ever happened. Every era has its own Vernaskis, revising their own histories to be courageous and heroic. mediocre actors in their own destinies, obscuring the truth with smoke and mirrors, gilding their own stories and making little difference.
Yeah, fucking Vronsky.
Because right before that, there's the what actually happened versus what is in.
Where he accidentally gets shot bending over to get his hat.
Exactly.
The journalist is like, oh, he just rode into battle.
Heroically charging with a full head of hair. Right. Yeah. Like.
Oh my God. So funny. So the other book that I'm reading right now has a weird intersection with this. Is Ben Sinister. It's one of the other books I'm also.
Oh yes.
Playing. But the Nabokov book, which is one that I hadn't read before. I've been sort of like working through all this stuff over and rereading and reading things I hadn't for a long time. But this one is like one of the most political ones, and it's set in like kind of a nowheresville. I think it's in Russia, but like there's not a lot of tags associated with it at the beginning as to like the space or the time. But it's a place where there's been like a ruler has just taken over. And so far, like I read the back copy kind of, but just like went into it blindly and was like uncovering like it's a book that's set up unlike this one. In the way that where here you get like the overall picture pretty quickly and then it fills in the details. Ben Sinister is the opposite, where like every sentence is a revelation as to what might be going on. Like you can only learn about the space almost sentence by sentence. And you're like, wait, where fuck are we? And like it kind of opens it up more and more. I wish I had it right next to me. That's
one of his earlier English.
It's the first one in English.
Okay.
The first one that he wrote in America. And basically what's happening in a broad stroke is that there's a professor who's the main character, and the leader who's taken over is like the political party of the people, and they're all stupid. Like they're all just the stupidest people. And so they're like, that's who's taken over. And they're like, have a conversation with the professor where they're like, yeah, man, I guess you'll have the universities open again soon, but you won't be teaching all that shit that you're teaching. And he'll teach you how to like tie their shoes and how to like, paint walls and do things that actually matter. None of that like thinking bullshit. And like there's a part where like he has to cross a bridge after his wife dies, and they're like, we can't read your past, so like we're not gonna let you go across the bridge. And then like he finally convinces them, let him across the bridge, and the other guards are like, oh no, they needed to sign it. And so he goes back and they're like, we don't know how to write. Like, what are we supposed to do? So it's like it feels like you're living in America. Like it's less Kafka-esque and more like this book could be set in Trump's America today, and it would track so far through the first like 50 pages. It could, you could tell me this on the back copy and I'd buy it 100%. It's wild. But he has a metafictional part in there. Let me see if I can find the book really quick. His metafictional like nod in the sections that I've read is there's a part where, oh, here it is. Yeah, and if you think I'm going to edit this out, you are wrong. So there's a part where he, there's a character that's in the back of a car. So the professor gets picked up. He's being summoned to this meeting. He gets picked up with his car, and there's another guy in the back of the car who speaks in a Frenchman. And I am not going to do very well with this, but I'll try and read the paragraph. So this is the very like Nabokovian metafictional element. So it's like, is it the verity, said Barreau, suddenly shifting to English, which he knew Krug understood, and speaking it like a Frenchman in an English book. Is it the verity that, as I've been informed by the reliably sources, the disposed chief of state has been captured together with a couple of other blokes, and then in parentheses, when the author gets bored by the process or forgets, somewhere in the hills and shot. But no, I just cannot credit. It is too horrible when the author remembers again. And it has like, so it like references like this character is talking as if he's like a Frenchman in the English book, but like through those variations. And I was like, that is so fucking sly. Like, I love that. Like it's obvious. Like it's obvious in the way that the stuff is obvious in Carmen's book, but a different sort of obvious. Like it textualizes it instead of like puts it into the metafictional aspect.
That's great. I'll check that out.
The book is fucking funny too. Like,
yeah, but I just committed to reading about 8 books of Tolstoy. So I'm sorry. I'll have to get to it. I hope I'll get to it before the election time shows up. So
we're not gonna have an election.
Okay, good.
Just cancel that.
Yeah,
we'll need it.
All right. So what are we reading next week?
We are reading part 2, which is called Bloody Sunday. It is pages 74 through 100.
Awesome.
I hope there's blood. Let there be blood.
Shouldn't be too hard these days.
No, really not. Isn't Bloody Sunday generally like an Irish reference though?
I think it's it's U2.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Those blokes. Okay, see you next week, man.
Alrighty, be safe.